I was involved for many years with criminal intelligence. And criminal intelligence is a bit like a mosaic or a jigsaw for which you don't really have a clear idea of what the finished picture should look like. The idea is you get little clumps of information and you try and stick them together, and then you get those clumps and you stick them to larger clumps, and gradually you build up a picture, and hopefully it's the picture you wanted, and you get to catch the bad guys. Well, the way my brain happens to be wired up means that I'm actually pretty useless at most things in life. I can't put up a shelf, I can't play football, I can't throw a dart, but I do have quite a good memory for facts, and I do have a sort of creative way of looking at things and how they connect together. And it led to me writing a book a few years ago, 2008, called Joined Up Thinking. Yeah, thank you. Joined Up Thinking, creepy. This new book, it's sort of like an extension of the idea. I've just taken the idea one stage further. And the idea is, it's a bit like 6 degrees of separation, but 6 degrees of information. The idea that everything can be connected to everything else. And what the book consists of is 30 sort of unique, bespoke chapters, each of which, as one of my really good friends pointed out, is exactly one bowel movement long. So it's a great toilet book, you know. It's 30 unique little chapters, which starts with a fact, and each fact connects to the one before it and the one after it, and the whole thing runs in a big circle. So basically, you start at the beginning and end at the beginning. Now, thinking about what I was going to talk about up on stage here tonight, I thought, should I just do a reading from sort of the book, or should I think about showing how connections exist? And I thought, well, actually, we've got tonight some really interesting people standing up on stage talking to you tonight. So I wondered whether I could find connections between the people who are standing up here tonight. So I put all the information into my wonderfully steampunkish Connectoscope and wondered whether I could find the connections. And what came out was something a bit like a Lord of the Rings quest, except that instead of a quest for a ring, it was a quest for pledges. Yeah, okay. Easy shot, wasn't it? Now, here's where the connections form. Now, my own name, my surname is Colgan, C-O-L-G-A-N. Not the most common of names. It's of Irish origin, and it means swordsman, which is quite cool, isn't it? Yeah. And I thought, great, so to start my quest, I've got a swordsman. How wonderful is that? So I thought, well, I can't just be on my own, I need someone else as well. So I started looking through the list of people who are up here tonight talking, and I found we had Katie Brand. Now, Katie Brand, yeah, I did see her arrive just now. And Katie Brand, her name actually comes from an old word which also means sword, or at least pointed implement that you push into people. Now, the origin of the word branding, is of course coming from, you know, branding cattle and things like this, but the very, very earliest brands were actually just heating a sword up in a forge and actually just making your mark on the animal or object just using the heated sword. So that's quite interesting, because I thought, great, we've got a swordsman and we've got someone who can, you know, hold a sword. Now we need someone to make the swords, so we need a smith. Yes, and of course we have a smith. The person who's written this book here, we've got Graham Smith. And Smith in itself is an interesting name, because the inference is you would assume that the name is to do with the vocation, it's to do with someone who made metal objects. But I'm judging by the fact that it's the most popular name in the UK. Either the Smith family were really prolific shaggers, or there's another origin to the name. And what I found when I was doing a little bit of research is that one possible origin for some of the people called Smith out there is an old Anglo-Saxon word, which is smiter, which means actually someone who twats someone else. So consequently, it's the name Smiter or Smith, where a lot of the names Smith may have come from, is actually basically a word for warrior or soldier, and a lot of people would have called themselves Smith to show the fact that they were a warrior. I thought that's quite good. That's really interesting. Now, a smith needs someone to help out. Who can help out in the forge? Who can help make the swords? And I thought, well, it would be quite useful if we had someone who could handle the ladles, you know, that have got to move all the molten metal around. Now, the ladle that's used to move molten metal is called a chopping. Oh, in fact, it was Graham Smith, wasn't it? We got a George chopping. And yeah, I know, I got the names wrong, I'm sorry. And we got a George chopping, and again, looking into the origins of that name, there's a number of reasons and a number of possible explanations of how the name chopping came about. Quite apart from somebody who goes around hitting people with axes. We've already got a few of these people in our party. But a chopping or a chop-in is, as I said, the ladle that you use for molten metal. And the person who made it was called a chopping, which may be the origin of the name. So we've now got at least a couple of people with swords. We've got somebody who can make the swords and somebody who can help make the swords, you know, in terms of using the molten metal. So now what we need is maybe a couple more people to help us on our way. We need some warrior stock, you know, we need some warriors. And as it happens, we do have, hopefully here later on this evening, we've got Hardeep Singh Kohli. And Hardeep, as you may well know, is a Sikh. And the Sikh, although a very peaceful and enlightened bunch of people, are also notably a warrior race. And the name Singh that a lot of male adult Sikhs adopt means lion. And it's used in the context of warrior. And in fact, one of the symbols to show that you are a Sikh, one of the things that you do to show the fact that you're an adherent to Sikhism is to carry a small sword with you, a kirpan. So we've got a warrior here whose name means lion. But actually we've got two warriors here whose name means lion, because we've also got Robert Llewellyn. And Llewellyn, if you didn't know, is also a name that's associated with the word lion. Because although the word Llewellyn actually comes from joining two names together of two Celtic gods, the Llyw part of it, the very first part of it, is actually Welsh for lion. And Llewellyn the Great, who ruled Wales for 40 years or so, adopted the lion as his shield, and so the lion became associated with Welsh royalty. So we've now got a couple of people wielding swords, people making swords, we've got a couple of warriors with us, a couple of fighting beasts with lions, a couple more fighting beasts would be really useful. So thankfully we've got Adrian Teal, who's named after a duck. I tried my hardest to try and find I tried my hardest to try and find some sort of Northamptonshire fighting duck, or something that was brought out and you know, whose quack was fearsome to behold, or something like this. But I did struggle. But nevertheless, you know, our fighting duck is welcome to join us on our quest. And talking of ducks, we've also got, but for the name Khan, thankfully, we've got Keith Khan Harris with us, who, if it wasn't for the name Khan, would be Keith Harris, and we would have Kin Orville with us. So, but interestingly, the name Keith Khan Harris is interesting in itself, because although the name Khan probably comes from a priestly caste within Judaism, and is also the origin of the name Cohen, another possible origin of the name Khan comes from Celtic mythology, and it means wild goose. So we've got a wild goose and a ferocious duck. So, you know, we're fairly well equipped. So, that, ladies and gentlemen, is basically an example of how all these things can be joined together. That if you look for the connections, you can find them. I've tried to find the connections between as many bizarre things as I possibly can. If you watch the video on the Unbound website, you'll see what I mean. And hopefully, I should get a few of you pledging, and I'll get a little bit closer towards that target. So, thanks very much.